This new Shadowdark adventure has some awesome ideas that you should borrow for your own game. Stay tuned to find out more. Hey folks, I'm William, this is Runeforged. Welcome to the channel. Today we're going to be talking about the Defiler of Moonsilk Keep, a low-level Shadowdark adventure by Arthur Marquez. In the interest of full disclosure, Arthur did send me a free preview copy of this adventure, and he's also been a regular part of the Runeforged community for quite some time now. For those reasons, I don't feel like I can do a completely unbiased review, so I want you to think of this more like a spotlight, where I mostly just talk about things that I really like about the adventure. And if it sounds interesting, you can pick up a copy for yourself using the link down in the description. So what is the Defiler of Moonsilk Keep? Well, it's actually quite a lot of things, but just to start off, it's a fairly lengthy classic fantasy adventure for the Shadowdark Tabletop RPG with a recommended starting level of either 2 or 3, depending on your party size. The premise of this adventure is that your characters are, or at least were, part of the Grey Wyvern Mercenary Company, but a recent job that went bad has resulted in the deaths of all of the senior officers of the company, which now leaves the characters to fend for themselves. Having recently arrived in the town of Havenford, the characters discover that the town and surrounding countryside are beset by a number of dangers. The most prominent of these is the Cult of the Black Hand, a dangerous group of lycanthropes and their minions who have taken up residence in the nearby abandoned keep. Unbeknownst to the characters, the cult is attempting to unleash a monstrous entity that was long ago imprisoned beneath the keep. Will our heroes be able to stop the cult in time, or will the monstrous beast escape its long imprisonment and wreak havoc on the innocents of Havenford? Speaking of which, if you are enjoying this video so far, please consider wreaking havoc on that like and subscribe button so you don't miss out on more awesome adventure spotlights like this in the future. So what's included with the Defiler of Moonsilk Keep? Well, actually, there's a ton of stuff. First, you've got the adventure itself, which is an absolutely massive 170-page PDF, which doesn't even include all of the supplemental material like maps and pre-generated characters. The adventure includes an absolute ton of stuff, including a level 0 gauntlet where you actually play out the doomed previous mission of the Grey Wyvern Mercenary Company, a miniature hex crawl, which also includes 5 one-page breakdowns for the various different points of interest. You also get maps, NPCs, and other relevant info for the starting town of Havenford, as well as a massive multi-level 60-room dungeon, along with maps, encounters, and enemies for each of those locations. There's also stat blocks for 72 zero-level characters, I guess because it assumes that your party is going to die quite a bit running that zero-level gauntlet. And there's also like files upon files of various different maps, both player and GM facing, that cover all of the major locations within the adventure. I think it would be difficult to overstate just how much content is crammed into what you get. So what stood out to me about this adventure? Well, first, I absolutely love the theme, setting, and various different factions. It definitely has that classic fantasy vibe, and that's kind of attested to with the various different sources in the credits. You know, it mentions stuff like The Hobbit and Fafhrd and the Grey Mouser. I also feel like I picked up some stuff from like Dragon Age Origins, which I really appreciate, and just a ton of other like classic fantasy tropes that I really love. In particular, I love the fact that this adventure has a very strong dwarven presence among the NPCs and locations. In terms of enemies, you've got like your kind of classic, like you've got your goblins, and there's a coven of hags that are fighting amongst themselves for dominance. And there's also a cult, the Cult of the Black Hand, which is largely made up of lycanthropes and their minions. And I just really enjoy fighting against those, classic fantasy enemies. Also, and I think I alluded to this a little bit earlier, but the art in this adventure is absolutely fantastic. Like this one is like a dragon sleeping on a cliff and just looks like a little farmhouse down below, not kind of realizing how much danger it's in. We've got some heroes or NPCs here, kind of enjoying some downtime in between adventures. I also like these wanted posters in the background. Those are pretty neat. Again, I love dwarves, so happy to see that represented here. I think these are actually troglodytes, if I'm not mistaken. I love this interpretation of troglodytes. I don't know if maybe they have some sort of like dwarven theme, like maybe these are corrupted dwarves or something, but very, very cool. Here we've got what looks to be a werewolf on a night of a full moon, fighting against, again, some dwarves. So again, we're seeing that strong dwarven presence. Absolutely loving that. Yeah, so fantastic art throughout this whole book. And that's only like a very, very small amount of the art that's available. So I was just kind of, one of the things that really blew me away about the adventure in general is just the amount and the quality of art. I really was not expecting that. There's also a couple of like really interesting ideas that this adventure introduces, and I want to talk to you a little bit about some of those. So what I really like about this is it really ties into the theme of being part of this Grey Wyvern mercenary company, and kind of tying into the prologue where all of the like high-ranking officers have either died or are lost. The characters now have to step in and fill those shoes. And one of the ways that that's represented mechanically is that the characters can take on one of these various different roles, like, you know, captain, quartermaster, surgeon, weapon master. And taking on those roles gives them additional abilities. If I remember correctly, this is very similar to something that Matt Colville did during his Chains of Acheron campaign, and that's actually listed as one of the sources of inspiration for this adventure. And it's just really cool to see that come over into Shadowdark. And if I ever run this, I think that's a really cool idea, and we're absolutely going to be using this part of it. Another thing that I really enjoyed was that this adventure includes a custom carousing table that really ties in the various different elements of the adventure into carousing as a mechanic. So instead of just kind of getting the more generic stuff that you see in the Shadowdark rulebook, the entries here are very, very specific and very tuned to this adventure, which I think is just a really cool idea. That's not, I don't know, maybe other people have done this before, but it's the first time that I've ever seen it. And I think that moving forward, I will almost certainly implement some sort of custom carousing table for my own games that really ties it into the theme and setting for the adventure. I just think that's a really great idea. Another mechanic that I found really interesting was this nemesis mechanic listed under the bestiary section. And it says, whenever a monster kills a character and survives the encounter, it gains a nemesis talent. Roll on the nemesis table below, and there's like a D10 chart here that gives that monster an additional ability that kind of makes it like a more elite version of itself. And that just seems like a really awesome concept to me. And it kind of reminds me of, what's it called? It's like Middle Earth Shadows of Mordor, maybe Shadow of Mordor. And that game had like a very similar mechanic, but I've never seen it ported over into a tabletop RPG like this. I just thought that was a really cool idea and a really awesome way to make those, you know, because you could have a situation where like a goblin or some little minion ends up killing a character, and that's like kind of anticlimactic. But what if you come back and you come to realize that, oh, this wasn't just any goblin, this was like a special or elite goblin. And that's reflected now in the mechanics as a result of this nemesis mechanic. Very, very cool. Great idea. I'm absolutely going to be stealing this for my own games in the future. All right, so we've talked a lot about the various different things that I really like about the adventure, but I do want to make up that if you pick this up, that your expectations are properly calibrated. You know, Arthur did tell me when he sent this over that this was largely a solo project and that English is not his first language. So he said to expect, and then I also did find, you know, a couple typos here and there. I did not find that they significantly impacted my understanding of the material, but they definitely were there. And I don't know this for sure, but I kind of have the impression that this is the first adventure that Arthur has published. So it makes sense that it is a little bit more rough around the edges. Also, I have to say it was a little bit too long for me personally. I definitely prefer running shorter, more streamlined adventures, similar to what you get in the official Shadowdark material. And there were some places where I had some difficulty kind of figuring out how the different locations tied together. And in general, was just a little bit overwhelmed by the sheer amount of stuff that comes with the adventure. You know, for newer creators especially, I do highly recommend kind of making shorter content, at least initially. And if you can, making that material available either for free or pay what you want, at least until you can cultivate more of an audience, as that's going to vastly increase the number of eyes that you get on your work which is critically important to new creators. And you don't have to take that from me. That is very common advice that I see across a number of TTRPG creators, including Kelsey Dion, who is the creator of the Shadowdark RPG. But I do think it's really important to give credit where it's due. And I want to give a huge shout out to Arthur for getting this published. Publishing your own adventure is an absolutely huge accomplishment, and most people will never take the steps necessary in order to make that happen, especially with a first project that is this massive. So Arthur, if you end up watching this, you are an absolute madman, and I have huge amounts of respect for what you've managed to do with this adventure. Even if you did rickroll me with one of the hyperlinks in this module, I will not forgive you for that. Yes, that's right. There is a rickroll embedded somewhere in the hyperlinks of this module. And if you pick up this adventure for yourself, you are probably going to get trolled just like I did. Regardless, I'd love for you guys to show Arthur some love down in the comments, congratulating him on all of the hard work that he's done to make this adventure a reality. And if you'd like to pick up a copy of this adventure for yourself, you'll find a link to do so down in the description. As a heads up, this channel does make use of affiliate links, which means that a percentage of your purchase will go to support the channel at no additional cost to you. And just know that I very much appreciate that support. If you've enjoyed this video, then you may enjoy these other Shadowdark adventure spotlights that are popping up on your screen right about now. I think that about wraps it up for now. Thank you so much for watching and have a wonderful day. Bye.